Want to build a thriving business while making a much bigger impact in the world by becoming known as an influential voice in your industry? The choice versus just a choice with your ideal client? That's exactly what you're going to learn as I interview business experts, industry thought leaders, and entrepreneurs who are in the trenches making their mark so you can too. This is the award-winning podcast, The Ambitious Entrepreneur Show, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. And welcome to another show. So my guest today says it's not work hard, play hard. It's passion first, work second. Joining me on today's show is Mike Fata. Mike co-founded Manitoba Harvest Hemp Foods back in 1998, and he served as the chairman of the board and CEO until 2016. Then he helped guide the strategic sale of the company to Tilray for $419 million in 2019. Now, since then, he has celebrated and supported many other businesses and ventures as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as an advisor and mentor. So on today's show, Mike is going to share how to efficiently create your minimal viable company or community for your business. He's also going to talk about aligning your personal passion with business to build world-class success. And then he's going to talk about how to find the best mentor to expedite your growth and so much more, I'm sure. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me.
That is an impressive introduction. I mean, if we look back in 1998, you co-founded Manitoba Harvest Hemp Food. Take us back to that time. What was the reason you started this company? Was it a passion of yours?
I had dropped out of high school and I fell prey to the fast food movement. Found myself overweight at 300 pounds or about 140 kilos when I was 18, and I decided to change my diet, change my lifestyle, and that got me into health, which got me really interested in hemp and hemp foods. So that was the catalyst for founding Manitoba Harvest.
Absolutely. And we're going to dive straight into it because I'm sure you're going to be able to unpack some of the key points that we shared at the beginning of the show, particularly around how to efficiently create your minimal viable community. Talk about and how do you define minimal viable community? What does that mean?
Yeah, so every business, when you start it, you need a certain customer base, or you need a certain size of consumers in your community. Being in the health food business, but really generally in consumer packaged goods, it's really about a lot of entrepreneurs get hung up on how many stores am I selling into, and distributors and all the people that are a really valuable part of the supply chain. But at the end of the day, it's about your customer. And how many consumers do you need eating your product or using your product on a regular basis for your business to be successful? And that's your minimum viable community. And there's an approach there of thinking about what's the most efficient way to acquire and retain your minimum viable community and match it to your business growth plan and your budget from startup through to the different growth phases of business.
Let's talk about that, because I'm sure that there are some certain things that you could recommend people look at if this is really a new concept or something they may have heard of but not really looked deeper into. Where do we start when we're looking at this?
Yeah, well, you start close to home. Really, where I see too many founders and too many entrepreneurs getting in trouble is they expand too far away from their house, and especially in consumer packaged goods. If you're selling in stores that are, my suggestion is, your first 10 stores should be in the first 10 kilometers or 10 miles from your house, and you should be looking at getting upwards of 100 customers in each one of those stores. It's much easier to do that because you can actually drive down the street, go to those stores yourself as a founder, make friends with the owner or the manager of the store, get your product listed, be in there doing product demonstrations, and really build that community. Whereas if you start selling your products in a different province or a different state, it's really impossible to affect the actual sales in those stores.
Yes.
And that's what we think about is going like an inch wide and a mile deep. You want to be
Yes.
close to home and really build up your community at home, and then you can amplify that community and expand outward.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because we've heard about that, I'm sure, when it comes to marketing, being across too many platforms at the one time and stretching yourself too thin. We can use the same concept as far as focus on getting some key stores up and running, and then you also said supporting them. I mean, it's well and good getting your product into a store, but then if you kind of disappear and not supporting the store in generating visibility and so forth, that can kind of plummet as well. Do you find that that can also be a distraction? I'm in that store now. I've got to do another store.
Yeah, that and I think it's just natural for entrepreneurs to that shiny object syndrome to like chase the new instead
Yeah.
of really strategizing and thinking about it like a larger company would. You know, how
Yeah.
many customers in that store? You know, we use velocities as a metric in store. If you're selling a chocolate bars probably sell 10 or 15 or maybe even 20 units per week per store. Well, if you're a chocolate bar, a new chocolate bar, and you go sell in that store, but you're only selling 3 or 4 units per in a week, you're going to get delisted. You're not going to have a long life there. And so think about the worst case scenario is you're in that store, you're only selling a couple units a week, and you choose to go and get listing into another store, and
Yes.
then that store is only selling a couple a week. Now you're going to get delisted in both of those stores, and you haven't really grown your business at all. Instead of thinking, hey, I'm going to get this one store selling, if the store buyer and the category is selling like 15 a week, I always want to be doing better than that. So how can I be selling 15 plus, maybe 20 units a week before I go and expand into a different location?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is a topic that we have covered before, but a lot of the listeners that are listening to the show, a lot of them are service-based businesses. However, a number of them have also delved into the area of products. So this is quite new for me as well. So it's just fascinating. I mean, when you think of ways in which you already mentioned, there's a number of things that you can do in-store product demonstrations. I mean, now we have at our fingertips technologies that will allow us to create incredible videos and behind the scenes and all of those sorts of things. How important is it when it comes to marketing to leverage the tools that we do have available and also create an online community that we can then obviously in your local areas, but a balance between also being online and doing the offline too. Is that important too as part of strategy?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the word there is the F word is focus. I tell founders nowadays, and I wasn't big into social media myself until 3 years ago. Our business was, and we did what we could to educate consumers and bring on new consumers through Facebook, through Instagram, through the different channels. But I think
Yes.
nowadays the founder's personal brand is an opportunity for low cost marketing, and it's really all about storytelling, and
Yes.
whether you're selling a product or you're selling a service, the reason why behind it. My story of that, I lost 100 pounds and I got interested in health, and health led me to the hemp seed because it's a very healthy seed, and then I wanted to go and shout that from the mountaintops. I can do that whether I'm in a store or at a trade show or a farmer's market, but I can also do that online. And so now my personal brand, I can talk about health, I can talk
Yes.
about the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as talking about my product. So I think if you're in the service business, you don't want to just be talking about why you're the best accountant. You want to talk about why you're into accounting and
Yes.
some of the trials and tribulations that you've learned going through this business, and that's what really draws people in to listen
Yeah.
to your story.
So true. And I think that beautifully segues into another point that you really want to share some insights into aligning your personal passion with business to build world class success. Look, talked about storytelling. I'm sure that when people found out about your personal story, there's going to be a group of your community that you're building that resonates and who may not even realize that what you did is available to them as well. So you're not only building rapport and the know, like, and trust, which we know is so important, but also educating them as to the different. And this is what we can do when we're storytelling. We do it really well, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, and I think that's effortless, or takes a lot less effort if it is your passion. And I don't care if your passion is health and you're going to get into a health food business or a health product, or you love sports and you want to do something with baseball, and maybe you're not a baseball player, but you can get in the industry and start selling baseballs, or you could create an app that helps people find the local baseball game. Like, if it's your passion and you can align your business with your passion. But the same can be true for service businesses. Like, Tom can be a plumber, but when people realize that Tom is just, fascinated with plumbing, all aspects of plumbing, it makes Tom a lot more interesting guy. And he has that founder product fit or founder service fit. So his why of why he's in this business is really clear. It's more than just money. That's his passion. And people would use that example of, the Ted Lasso business, the Ted Lasso show.
Mhm.
That passion. If you can align your personal interests with a business interest, whether you're working for someone or you're in entrepreneurship, boy, is it going to feel like you're working a lot less, and your natural curiosity and your interest to learn and be excellent at the craft will really shine.
Mhm. We talked about the importance of the founder, particularly with the passion and being able to communicate that. I'm sure that when we look at then building the business, one of the most important things when it comes to building a business is attracting the right kind of people to be able to support that. How important has it been for you in your business growth in ensuring that that message was just so key that you attracted the right kind of people to support you and your vision?
Yeah, critically important. I mean, we grew Manitoba Harvest to $100 million annual revenue, and we had more than 200 team members on the team at the
Mm,
peak of the business. And I realized, and so a couple different things for founders that are just starting out. It's really important to do a personal SWOT analysis and understand what your personal strengths and weaknesses are. I was naturally, my mom was an accountant, so I was naturally more gifted in finance, and it just made sense to me. And same with operation processes, and sales and marketing was something that I really had to learn. And so early on, I surrounded myself with some great sales and marketing people that could teach me, and I felt comfortable about holding up the back end of the business, the finance and operations. But too often, I see entrepreneurs that don't really know what their strengths and weaknesses are. They haven't taken that self-reflection time, and so they
mm,
make hires sometimes complementary to their skills, and then you're lacking some things, because at the end of the day, for your business, you have to make sure that sales, marketing, ops, and finance are all covered equally strong for each different growth stage of the business.
yes.
And the larger that your team goes from startup to growth phase, I find that our job as founder is really the instead of people thinking that they're a manager or that they're the boss, it's actually the keeper of the culture. You want to define what your culture is through your mission statement and through your core values of the business, and then you're upholding that by positive example, and then your team members are going to do what they see you doing, and that's how that strong culture forms in business.
Yeah. One of the most difficult things I think, and this is what I'm hearing a lot in conversations too, as founders of businesses, as the business continues to grow, we need to be willing to let go of things. How hard have you seen it, founders who are growing a team in letting go of those things and not becoming the micromanager, because ultimately they may have started the business because they're so passionate about it, but the way to enable it to grow is to get good people in there and allow them to do what they do really well. Can speak to founders who may be struggling with letting go of the reins, so to speak.
Yeah, and I had my own personal experience with it, but I see it all too often. And I say I'm a born entrepreneur, but a made CEO, and I see it with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs that can make something out of nothing and start a business up and get it going is one thing. When you start growing, especially growing a larger company, your job as a chief executive officer, especially when you have a great people managers or even above in sales and marketing and ops and finance, your job is about coordinating and making sure that everyone's clear on the larger strategies and the growth plan for the business, and allocating resources to your team. And yeah, for that you have to trust that you're hiring people that are ideally smarter than you in the role. They're going to do it a little different. My learning was, listen, it's my job as an executive and as the chief executive of the business to show people where we're going. We're going from A to Z, but how everyone's approached, the management of how they get from A to Z can be different, and I have to I have to allow that to happen and be conscious to know when that the wheels are still on the bus and we're going in the right direction, but give that room, because if not, and you start to um, you start to micromanage, or you can compromise executives and managers in a business real fast if you're trying to get them to do it your way, and
Yes.
not allow them to perform as they should.
Yeah. This is probably a question that's going to be, well, the answer, well, it really depends. There was a conversation that I was listening to with a group of founders and who were discussing, well, how do we know when, because the market can change and consumers, and all of that. So we need to be on top of that. But the question was, if we've implemented a marketing strategy, and this can even be with if we've got a new hire, at what point is there a time frame, or what point should we start to say, I'm not really sure whether this is working or not? Some Again, some people may find that 90 days, but can you talk a little bit about that? What, as founders, can we just keep at the back of our minds to be mindful of if we launched a new strategy or a new hire, but also keeping in mind, well, we've got to give it time, but what is that time factor? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Can you
for
speak
sure it
into
does.
that?
Yeah, and for me, I think structure drives function. So I'm a big believer in having a clear growth plan and having a clear budget, and then having good reporting, and then having a cadence of meetings to review. So weekly meetings, monthly meetings, and quarterly meetings. So when you hire a new manager, a new team member, they're inheriting whatever plan is written to date. And so the most important thing is an onboarding plan to make sure that you give them everything they need. If that is generally a review of all the materials in the plan, one-on-one meetings with their direct reports, but also their counterparts in the different departments of the business, time with yourself. But I go off of that 90-day plan. I think for sure, an executive, but even a good manager, in the first 30 days should have a good understanding of the business. You want them to spend a good amount of time listening and learning and onboarding, so they don't get to rush into it. From 30 to 60 days, they should be contributing to the plan and talking about how they're thinking about rewriting it, or what's going to be important for the future. And in between that 60 to 90-day mark, they should be fully revising the plan. I'm used to, in a rapidly growing business, that we're making adjustments to our quarterly strategy and also putting latest estimates to our budget every quarter. And so there's not going to be more than one quarter that you hire a new team member. You should be able to know for sure within 90 days
Yes.
if you have that right plan, and you have that right sequencing of events of reviewing and reporting, because they're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna have to own and they're gonna have to own the plan and write it before that next
Yeah,
quarter.
great insights. Thanks for sharing. When it comes to business growth, I'm sure you can speak into this. What's the importance, or how important are systems to your business?
Critically important. Yeah, it's all about systems. Everything is a system. I'm, we built our success on world-class quality. So quality
Yeah.
management system, and using a good quality management system to govern many aspects of the business. As many things as we could fit. So in the food business, the Global Food Safety Initiative, GFSI, is the scheme, and BRC was our food safety certification. It encompassed kind of A to Z in the business. But I think about just life in systems, and as an entrepreneur, you need to have those systems. I even talk about it as we talked earlier about personal brand building, social media. You need to have a system for your marketing and for your social media. You can't be a founder and think, I want to grow my personal brand. I know it's going to be good for my business, and then just go ad hoc onto LinkedIn or onto social media and be posting. Because what's going to happen is that may work for a week or two or a month, but then you're going to fall off. And so you have to have a system to say, you're gonna post 3 times a week. You're gonna spend 30 minutes each morning going on and communicating with and looking for like businesses and like founders in your industry. Here's some of the things and the storyboard that you're going to be sharing about, and really put a system to it so that it makes it easy to execute, and
Mm.
actually you're going to accomplish that. But I think about that in every aspect of the business. If you don't have a good plan and a system to make sure that plan is in order, you're likely going to fall off of it.
Yeah, I love that, and I think there's often two ends of, or two sides of the same coin, if you will. So it's not having systems at all in place, and then what you often see is the systems are so convoluted and so overwhelming they never really get done. And I remember hearing, or listening to a founder as she was growing her business from 6 figures to 7 figures and so forth. She said the more that we grew, as the team and so forth grew, we had to go into the systems and make sure that they were streamlined, because often it's the smallest of bottlenecks, which could have been, too comprehensive or overwhelming system. They're going to hit it's going to be a bottleneck. If there's a bottleneck, they'll hit it. And so as they continue to grow, it's streamlining, really getting it simple as possible. Would you agree that
Yeah,
simple systems that people can run with?
100%. I think, yeah, we start out as founders and startup businesses, and we have no systems, and when we fail because of that. Um, and then my experience is when we were $100 million company, we were overburdened with some systems, and like big businesses are, the ship just, it took longer to steer. Why? Because you needed four people's review and sign off on a certain project or initiative, and so and I think what you mentioned there, it is important under lean management. It's always a good idea to review and adjust any process, any system, to see how can we just make this more streamlined and more clear cut. Is it technology that we can bring in, that will, are we pushing a whole bunch of paper, and we can do a simple automation technology that will allow that to happen, the workflow in seconds instead of minutes or days even, and so that's one of the things that, from a strategic planning, it should be a deep dive into it quarterly, of like what's working, what's not working, and maybe even ad hoc when you hear your team saying, "Wow, there's like 10 steps to be doing this. I think we could do this in 5 steps," or
Yes, exactly. And so often, if we're as the founders, if we've come up with a system, we can kind of not want to let it go, but someone else can come into the business and say, "Hey, we can streamline this." Another conversation that I've often had with founders, particularly those who've got great visions. As visionaries, we can, if we're not careful, drive our teams mad, because we're always coming up, with different ideas. How about we do this? How about we do that? How important is it for a founder and CEO to get somebody alongside who is more system focused if you're not? I think this goes back to your conversation where you say, look about where your strengths are, but also your weaknesses, because if some of those areas of weakness, you can inhibit the team. If you're not aware of it, that can actually stop the team and business from growing. Yes?
Yeah, yeah, and it's an all too common issue, is that founders can be they can be the fire and the firefighter. They can bring chaos to the business, and then try to calm it. Where yeah, if you're not an operationally savvy person, and you're a more sales and marketing founder, and you see all these great new ideas and new products and new services you can sell, and you're out there doing lunches with your customers and doing that, you need a great ops or an ops finance person that can put the SOPs together, make sure the training's there, and really lock that down. And when it comes to new and innovation, I've found that, um, especially in big projects, new product development, maybe some new customer development, I always supported my team to say, let me take this as a skunk work project off to the side, because you have your priorities, we have our strategic plan, we know it's important, but we're always chasing, how can we stretch and get more, and can we grow faster? As a CEO, I found that I could take and incubate some of these projects and get it up to a certain stage that it was then, um, ready to be able to be taken on by the full leadership team, and launch, so to speak. And
Yes.
so, that's a strategy that's worked really well. Instead of doing nothing or kind of trying to give it all to the team, take it yourself and prove it out and get it to a certain launching point before it's brought forward and kind of incorporated into the overall strategic plan.
Yeah, great. And I like this, how this conversation's kind of beautifully segued into the last point, finding the best mentor to expedite your growth. Before you share some of the insights on how to find a great mentor, let's answer or ask this question: how can we be, um, or set ourselves up to be the best mentee? Because there's going to be things that we hear that we may not necessarily like to hear, but it's things that we need to be able to hear and implement. Because again, as we said earlier, we could be the bottleneck to our business, and we can hire the best mentors, get the best mentors around us. But if we're not open to hearing, really hearing and changing whatever needs to be changed and recommended, we can still be where we are, 10 years down the track. So how can we be the best mentee?
Yeah, it starts with being mindful. So I go again to that. What are your own strengths and weaknesses as a founder, and knowing what you need support with. And so if you're a good finance operations person, but you need sales and marketing support, which is where I found myself, I was going to go and seek out, and I did, a great sales mentor and a great marketing mentor. But I had to first know that that's what I needed the most help with, and I had to be open to then listening to a lot of what they told me, because I knew that I had a weakness there, and I wanted to build it into a strength, and I sought out the right mentors. So that mindfulness practice is going to be a key part of that, and then knowing that no mentor knows it all. You're still the entrepreneur, and so you're just taking insights, and probably the better mentors that you have. But mentors can be in a lot of forms. It could be more of an old guy or gal that's been through it before. That's one form of mentorship, but it also could be peer-to-peer mentors, like founders that are in a similar space that or industry that you're going through, non-competitive, that you guys can connect together and learn from each other. And then there's forms of really mass mentorship, where you can go and learn new techniques and processes and strategies from podcasts and from books, and go yourself. So, but at the end of the day, what those all have in common is you need to internalize those insights and those lessons that you learn, and then see what fits for you, because you can't just listen to what someone else is going to tell you. So on the front end of it, be mindful and know what you need to learn. And then on the back end of it, you have to take all the information in that whether it's mass mentorship, peer-to-peer, or a legacy kind of mentor, and then see what's going to be best for your business.
Yeah. One of the other things I think that we spoke about that can be considered when it comes to also mentorship too, is to be mindful of the mentor that you do hire, if you will, because I've heard some horror stories where they've locked themselves into, contracts, very expensive contracts, which they can't get out of. But similarly, you might hire someone as a mentor and it not really be a good fit. So you've got to be aware of what are some, contingencies that if you need to, that you can get out of that and not be locked into like a 12-month or more kind of mentorship. Can you share a little bit about that? I mean, this is obviously something that you can help people too. So if it makes sense to share a little bit about what you do in your business now, happy for you to do that too. So how can we protect ourselves if we are looking at getting into mentorships? Some of the more formal, if you will, because you really can see that, look, I'm in this for the long haul and I want to find someone who really can walk with me along that journey. How can we set ourselves up for success? And if we need to get out of that, if we just see that it's not working.
Yeah, I think it's a crawl, walk, run approach. For me personally, I distinguish the difference between mentorship, and I am a mentor, but mentorship for me is free. I know not everyone feels this way, but I'm also an advisor, and I advise companies large and small, and my advisory work is a practice. And so, regardless, they're both similar. That what I've seen in bad cases is that entrepreneurs get excited, as they do, and at a stage in their business, and they meet someone and they think that person's going to be the perfect fit and have longevity to them. So worst case scenario, they sign a contract with them and give them equity in the business, a large stake of equity, and then they realize, 6 months later, 9 months later, a year later, that advisor or that mentor was only a fit for a certain stage of the business, and there wasn't going to be longevity there. So when I say, crawl, walk, run, I think that it's making sure that there's a fit, which is really important with the mentor or the advisor, but also that the competency and experience of that advisor or mentor is going to carry you through multiple growth stages of the business, and then set the contract up with them accordingly. Like we have some free tools at fatafleischman.org, which is our mass mentorship website toolbox, on setting up an advisory board and having a proper contract, or if it's a formal board of directors, or if it's just looking for a mentor. But I think maybe mentor would be without contract, because usually it's without pay.
Yeah, fantastic. So share a little bit more about that and how people can get in contact with you, Mike, if they'd like to find out more about how you can best support them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, all things Mike Fata is at mikefata.ca, my website, mikefata.ca. So I have a lot of free learnings for founders and entrepreneurs. I have a podcast, the Founder to Mentor podcast. I write a newsletter. I share a bunch on social media with some growth guides and different things to help founders strategically plan and grow. I just wrote a book a couple of months ago, Grow 12 Unconventional Lessons for Being an Unstoppable Entrepreneur. And then I do some growth coaching and advising, but everything is on my website.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing incredible insights. And I know we've just scratched the surface. So if people have, and I know they will have benefited from what you shared today, want to find out more, reach out to Mike in the ways that he has just shared. So thanks once again for coming on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks again for having me.
Hey, it's Anne-Marie. Before I go, are you a coach or a consultant who feels like the world's best kept secret? Your experience is vast, yet secretly you're frustrated because despite all of your hard work, you're just not getting the visibility, the recognition, or new clients you'd hope for, and you don't know why? I've created a free resource that'll help you build visibility, generate leads, and enroll dream clients with ease because you're seen as a trusted authority, even in a crowded marketplace, and you've positioned yourself as the choice versus just a choice for your dream client. To get started, go to annemariecross.com/gift. That's annemariecross.com/gift.